Good evening, kids. How you doing today? So, I've got some things I want to talk about pertains to me, okay? And I'm going to read off some civilian side and military side. What this entails is what I was talking about, getting addicted to dopamine, adrenaline, and cortisol, the addiction to stress, okay? This can occur within civilian life from now when you're young all the way till now my age, okay? I've elaborated on different videos of the things I've done in my life. Every bit of my career of military and civilian was high risk. It involved sometimes putting myself in danger, or just putting myself in a high stress environment, or doing things I really shouldn't that would be considered unsafe. Okay. Along with that, this type of behavior in people like me push us to do things on our own, solo, starting business, being able to tolerate certain people, situations, groups of people, the ability to multitask. Okay, that's one of my niches, remember? Like, I multitask basically everything. Okay. It's just the ability to have that organizational skill, to know you have something going on over here, while at the same time you got something going on right here, and you got something coming at you over here. Okay. Being able to prioritize each thing quickly in your mind is a very cool skill to be able to do that on the fly. Okay. But a lot of people don't know how to do that and can't do that because they were not trained and conditioned mentally, psychologically, to feed off of that. Okay. This can go dark side. It really can. Okay. There are operators out there, okay, secret squirrels do their thing overseas, okay, that really get off of the high or the adrenaline junkie or whatever you want to call it, okay. It is a neurochemical high when you start doing these things that are dangerous and you're successful. It's a reinforcement to the brain to give that reward chemical, okay, for getting into that state of mind, that brain frequency. I've been a cowboy for years on end, military, construction site. I've owned my own business a couple times. In the military, I did not have much fear. Okay. I was on the front line. I jumped out of C-130s. I drove Humvees, tanks. I've shot multiple different weapon systems. Live fire. Like, not just live fire on the range, but live fire in combat. Okay? I used to thrive in that environment. Okay? And I started noticing that when I became a cowboy, things were a little bit slower, and I realized I can do 2 to 3 cowboy jobs at once because I thrive in that stressed environment where things need to get done now. So I multitask. Okay? It takes a lot of time to learn how to do that. While at the same time, if you're not careful, you're going to end up pushing yourself into a high stress environment where it's so dangerous that you really should not fucking be there. And I want to emphasize this because it is only in my more mature age of 45 going on 46 that I understand how delicate, precious, and fragile life really is. Okay, not just for my own sake, but for the dogs, my mom, all of you kids. Okay. As a young man growing up, we think we're fucking Superman. We do, because our bodies are young, resilient, heals fast, and we can build muscle very easily when we're young. Okay, so we keep getting those reward chemicals in our brain every time we reach another successful point in our life or reach a goal in our life. It's a neurochemical high that you get addicted to and you keep trying to seek it out more. Okay. I want my kids to understand that yes, it's good to be successful, but when you start pushing yourself into situations where it is a high stress environment and you are getting stressed out, your heart rate's getting up, you're thinking really fast and you're more on autopilot and you're doing and saying things you probably shouldn't be. Okay? You will get addicted to that behavior and you'll start looking like a real asshole. Okay? So always remember to be humble. And yes, you have my genes in you. Okay? So you're going to be active. You're going to want to be on your own. You're going to want to be solo. You're going to want to do whatever it is that makes you happy. Okay? Don't be afraid to take some risk in life to accomplish things. But don't put risk to your life, your loved ones, or anybody else around you at that moment. Okay? It could be an innocent bystander out in public and somebody tries to pick a fight with you. You don't know if this motherfucker has a gun, but you step up to him anyway. Motherfucker pulls a gun, but you do succeed to subdue him without him pulling the trigger, hurting you or anybody else around you. Okay. I'm bringing that up as an example because I've done that. That was stupid. Don't you fucking ever try to attack somebody with a fucking gun in their hand. You do not have my training, my experience. You don't have my balls. I am confident in what I can do. Don't try to fucking be a hero. Okay? Don't put yourself in that fucking situation. If the motherfucker has a gun, whether you're by yourself or you got your friends or family with you, you just fucking back off and get the fucking people out of the way. Okay? Now, if the motherfucker is like too close and he's getting it to your face, that's when you can fucking get it out of the way and kind of push it toward back him. Okay? Noah is the only one big enough that could do that. So for the rest of my kids, my size, don't try to be a fucking hero. And Noah, be careful. No matter what the situation is, you gotta remember to keep a level head. And that's one of the things that has happened to me. I've been bombarded with so many different types of stressors that I can keep a level mindset as I'm going through that situation. Okay? Watch the movie The Equalizer with Denzel Washington. No, not Denzel Washington. Isn't it? Yeah, it's Denzel Washington. Or Jason Bourne. Okay, those two movies set a good example because as the situation unfolds for those two characters, okay, the Equalizer and Bourne, okay, the camera view looks through the first person perspective, and they're calculating all the scenarios and all the different situations and targets in front of them, and anything that could be a weapon. Okay, that in itself is taught military and all federal agencies. You're taught how to think that way. Okay, so when you see that in a movie, that's training. Looking around as the situation unfolds, you see the aggressors and targets, you see all these different objects that could be weapons, plus your own training. Okay. This is a type of multitasking, while at the same time analyzing the situation as it unfolds. Just like you would do critical thinking and self-analyzation when you're dealing with a verbal stressor, like a relationships thing. Okay, you're analyzing it as the words happen or actions happen. This type of engagement is also a trigger for the stress high. Okay, it's a reward chemical. Okay, it's like your eyeballs are going bing, 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 bing. Okay, and in your brain, your brain is pumping out those chemicals so that your body goes into autopilot. Okay. There are operators out there that will physically, in their face and sometimes in their body, physically change when these things happen to them. Okay. There has been more than one documented case where a man's eyes go completely black, his jaw kind of bulges out, kind of gets squishy in the face, fucking mean. Okay. And the guy's wife explained how his shoulders would come back and his form would just come like upright and he'd become a completely different person. Okay. That case was so extreme, it was borderline personality disorder. Okay. Because the neurochemical reward was so great in that man's body and brain that his physiology changed to match the chemistry. That is an extreme case of addicted to dopamine, adrenaline, and cortisol. Okay? So, there are many different levels to this. While at the same time, you can get addicted to this type of stressor in little bits. And when you get home, you're going to be stressed out. You're going to be fucking exhausted while at the same time wired. Physically exhausted, but mentally wired. Can't go to sleep. Okay. Now I'm going to read all these different things for you. We're sitting at basically 14 minutes now. I just need to get that part out so you can really understand. Okay. That I too was an adrenaline junkie. That's why I did what I did in my life. I keep thinking in my head as I'm talking, the picture of me jumping out of the C-130. It wasn't fear. I unhooked from the wall and stepped out into the middle of the fucking, I forget what they called it, the middle of the bay of the fucking plane as we were flying. Back hatch opens up. I unhook. And I already had my wingsuit on. Okay. I fucking zipped my sleeves, my legs, scooted to the fucking edge. I was gone. Okay. I got in trouble for gliding down to the fucking Onslow Beach. I got bumped down a rank because I did not follow procedure and pull my chute. But what I did was, demonstrate that it was fucking possible to do that. 6 months later, I got my sergeant back. Okay? Because I took a risk because of my training I had already been practicing. We had already fucking went up fucking last week and did not pull our chutes. We only glided down. But that wasn't a training off for that day. So, don't get yourself in trouble. Don't lose your rank. Follow orders. Do as you're told. Okay? The Marine Corps and other branches are not the same anymore. You do something stupid like that, you could probably get kicked out. Okay? There's just been too many cases of stupid people doing stupid shit and they die. Training. But that was me. Okay. The only reason my unit really got away with it is because, one, Marines have to keep up with all special forces. Marines train with special forces intentionally. Okay. The Marine Corps is the only branch that is forcefully trained to keep up with them. Okay. So I will never claim to be special forces, and I'm going to be reading specific information about them. But Marine Corps is one step below special forces. Okay? We train with everybody, even the spooks, the fucking alphabet agencies. Okay? There are things that we did that I'll never be able to talk about, honestly. But it created who I am. And even the bad shit, the stressors, eventually wear off. As long as you're trying to be a better person. Okay? So I'm going to stop babbling now. I'm sitting at fucking 17 minutes. I just really want to put this together so my kids can understand. Okay? So we're going to start with the civilian side, stress addiction, as it's defined, and then we'll move over to special forces or personnel and veterans. Okay. Stress addiction is defined as a recurring pattern of seeking out stressful situations or behaviors that increase stress even when the individual is distressed, aware of negative consequences, and desire to stop. Although it is not a formal clinical diagnosis, it functions similarly to substance addiction because chronic stress triggers the release of dopamine, adrenaline, and cortisol, which can create a chemical high that the brain craves. Key signs of being addicted to stress include seeking chaos, deliberately taking on excessive tasks, volunteering for high-pressure projects, or creating tight deadlines to feel engaged. Okay? Discomfort and calm. Feeling bored, restless, or anxious during downtime, often viewing rest as unproductive or wrong. Avoidance. Using constant busyness and stress to avoid comforting underlying emotional issues, trauma, or grief. Okay, we're going to pause on that one for a minute. Okay. Avoidance. Using constant busyness and stress to avoid confronting underlying emotional issues, trauma, or grief. Okay. For my kids, if your mamas are keeping you busy, or she herself keeps her ass busy, that's what this is. Okay. It's a complex bag, what I'm trying to say here, but avoiding the issue is another mental health chronic issue. So avoidance, using constant business and stress to avoid confronting underlying emotional issues, trauma, or grief. Okay. All three of your mothers have emotional issues, trauma, or grief. Okay. So they stay busy to avoid the emotional issues, avoiding the confrontation of reality and the trauma and the emotional attachment to those traumas. Okay? So it's the same thing in civilian as it is military. Okay? Inability to disconnect, feeling unsettled when away from work or communication devices, and continuing stressful behaviors despite physical symptoms like fatigue or high blood pressure. This condition is closely linked to substance use disorders, as chronic stress alters the brain's reward system and impairs impulse control, making individuals more vulnerable to using alcohol or drugs to cope. Breaking the cycle often requires therapy, mindfulness practices, and learning to tolerate the discomfort of relaxation without immediately seeking out new stressors. The biology of the stress high. Stress addiction is driven by a potent neurochemical feedback loop. When you encounter a stressor, your body releases cortisol and adrenaline to prepare for fight or flight. Crucially, this state also triggers the release of dopamine in the brain's reward center, the nucleus accumbens. Nucleus accumbens. Not sure what that means. It's hyphens. Anyway, while cortisol creates a sensation of urgency and alertness, dopamine provides a feeling of accomplishment or a rush when a stressful task is completed. Over time, the brain begins to associate high-pressure situations with the chemical reward. Chronic exposure alters the brain circuitry. Desensitization. The brain's baseline for stimulus. I'm going too fast. The brain's baseline for situations rise for stimulation rises, making calm environments feel boring or depressing. Impaired control. High cortisol levels weaken the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for the impulse control and rational decision making, while strengthening the basal ganglia, which drives habitual and automatic behaviors. The cycle. You begin to subconsciously seek out chaos to regenerate the dopamine spike, effectively self-medicating with stress. I'll come back to that one. Psychological roots and avoidance. Beyond biology, stress addiction often serves as a psychological defense mechanism. Avoidance of trauma, like I was saying before. Constant busyness acts as a shield against processing underlying grief, trauma, or difficult emotions. If you're always putting out fires, this is your example, you never have to sit with your own internal pain. Okay, so basically, if you're constantly putting out fires, keeping yourself busy, worrying about somebody else's issues, that's basically what it's saying, putting out somebody else's fires. You're not dealing with yourself, you're avoiding the subject, you're going to keep yourself busy with something else. Okay. Self-worth validation. Many individuals tie their identity to productivity. In this mindset, rest is equated to laziness or fatigue or failure, while stress is viewed as a badge of honor or proof of importance. Control. For some, creating a crisis feels safer than facing the uncertainty of the unknown. A self-imposed deadline is a problem they know how to solve, whereas emotional intimacy or existential questions feel unimaginable. Strategies for breaking the cycle. Recovering from stress addiction requires retraining the brain to tolerate calmness and finding new sources of dopamine. Physiological regeneration. You must manually lower your cortisol levels to stop the craving for stress. Somatic practices. Engage in activities that activate the parasympathetic nervous system, such as deep diaphragmatic breathing. Okay, hold on. Engage in activities that activate the parasympathetic nervous system, such as deep diaphragmatic breathing, yoga, or walking in nature. Sleep hygiene. Prioritize sleep to repair your prefrontal cortex, restoring your ability to make rational choices rather than impulse ones. Cognitive restructuring. And identify triggers. Notice when you are creating unnecessary urgency. Ask, is this actually a crisis, or does it just feel like one? Reframing productivity. Challenge your belief that your worth is tied to your output. Practice doing nothing for short intervals to build tolerance. Therapy. Modalities like cognitive behavioral therapy and acceptance and commitment therapy are often in identifying are effective in identifying the root emotional causes and developing healthier coping mechanisms. Okay, so cognitive behavioral therapy is what a psychotherapist practices daily. Okay, cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay, you are cognitively self-analyzing your behavior, and through therapy, talking to somebody, you can sort out your shit, understand that your behavior is wrong or fucked up or whatever it is you're doing, and you're restructuring yourself to be a better person. Okay, and acceptance and commitment therapy is for trauma victims. Okay, to accept what has happened and to commit to the healing. Okay. Behavioral boundaries. The no muscle. Practice declining non-essential tasks. Start small to reduce the anxiety associated with setting boundaries. Schedule downtime. Treat rest as a mandatory appointment, not a reward to be enrolled or earned after everything is done. It's kind of a weird statement, but okay, I get it. So it's basically saying, practice saying no to certain things that you really should be doing. Just, you need downtime, okay? And scheduling downtime. If you are in that kind of professional mindset and you need to schedule your downtime, that's because you're still keeping your ass busy. You have too much on your plate, okay? So for those types of mindsets, you have to schedule your downtime and increase that downtime incrementally, okay? Okay, that's done with the civilian side. Okay. Special Forces personnel and veterans often exhibit a psychological dependency on the high adrenaline environment of combat, a phenomenon researchers and clinicians describe as combat addiction, or severe form of PTSD characterized by thrill-seeking and hyperarousal. This condition arises because the intense stress of battle creates a powerful neurochemical reward loop, leading some operators to experience withdrawal, emptiness, and listlessness when returning to civilian life. Consequently, many affected individuals seek out dangerous activities, extreme sports, even returning to combat zones to recapture the God complex and the clarity they felt during the firefight. Well, that one kind of touched me a little bit reading that part. Not the God complex part, but the clarity I felt when I was in that situation. Okay. I've talked about how my senses are on fire when all the stimulant around me is removed. Okay. In that situation, I don't know exactly how that worked exactly, but I felt like there was nothing around me. I was focused on anything that my eyes hit. My ears were tuned in. It's like I said this years ago, but looking at my hands, and eye doctors have told me this is in my head, but when I look at my hands or anything around me, it looks like I'm looking through a screen, looking at a TV screen. Okay? But when I was there, I felt here. Like everything felt so much more vivid. Okay? As you're looking at me on this screen that you're watching me on. Okay? I'm looking at my screen, my things around me. This sitting in front of me looks like I'm looking at a TV screen. It doesn't look real. Okay? Puppy, you're going to have to wait. You're not messing with me this time. The clarity I felt during that firefight, or any of them, any of those high stress environments, everything felt more vivid. Everything. All my senses were alive. I feel numb. Like there's something missing that I'm not aware of that I can't feel no more. Okay? Key aspects of this stress dependency include neurochemical craving. I don't have that anymore. Maybe a little bit because of a cowboy, maybe? I don't know. The adrenaline and dopamine rushes from life or death situations become addictive, causing veterans to feel high during conflict and low during peace. Reenlistment and risk-taking. Veterans with this dependency are statistically more likely to reenlist, specifically seeking combat roles, and may engage in reckless behavior like fast driving or substance abuse to stimulate the intensity. Treatment barriers. Many veterans avoid traditional therapy because they cannot reconcile their guilt with the pleasure they derive from combat and combat addiction. It is not formally recognized as a standard clinical. It is not formally recognized as a mental health condition, but in standard clinical guidelines, complicating treatment. It's comma after comma. So basically, it's saying it's their barriers complicate the treatment because they are addicted and they're guilty for having the addiction. Okay. Stress inoculation versus dependency. While Special Forces training While Special Forces training uses stress inoculation to build resilience, prolonged exposure without adequate decompression can shift this resilience into a pathological reliance on high stress states for psychological stability. Okay, so if there was a way to fix this for all military members, I would say you need to go to this training, but you're also required to have this fucking downtime. Decompress. Okay? The neurobiology of the combat high. The dependency on stress in special forces is rooted in profound neurochemical adaptation where the brain becomes conditioned to function only under extreme arousal. During combat, the body releases massive surges of adrenaline, cortisol, and dopamine, creating a potent rush or high that reinforces survival behaviors. Over time, the brain reward system recalibrates to expect this consistent stimulation, effectively treating the stress response as a drug. When these operators return to civilian life, the sudden absence of the neurochemical cocktail triggers a state of akin to withdrawal. They experience fatigue and anhedonia, which is the inability to feel pleasure, and depression because their baseline for stimulation has been pathologically elevated. This phenomenon, often termed adrenaline addiction, drives veterans to seek high-risk occupations or reckless behaviors to artificially recreate the biochemical state of war. This goes back into more PTSD stuff. I'm not going to read too much into that. Let's do this. Key distractions include the nature of flashbacks. Veterans with combat addiction report flashbacks and nightmares as terrifying, but as exciting. The nature of flashbacks. Veterans with combat addiction report flashbacks and nightmares as not as terrifying, but as exciting, powerful, and pleasurable. They actively seek out these memories to feel the associated rush. Behavioral patterns. Instead of avoiding reminders of war, these individuals deliberately engage in combat-related activities such as handling weapons, watching war footage, or discussing tactical details to include physiological hyperarousal. The cycle. The condition follows a cyclical pattern of a high during arousal, followed by a depressive low, creating a compulsive need to re-engage with stress to escape the emptiness of peace. Operator syndrome and chronic stress. Beyond the physiological craving, prolonged exposure to high-stress environments can lead to physiological condition known as operator syndrome. Distinct from PTSD, this syndrome is caused by the cumulative biological toll of chronic stress and sleep deprivation on the special operations brain and body. Okay. Symptoms often include traumatic brain injury. Even without direct blast, the consistent state of hyperarousal can degrade neural pathways. Hormonal dysregulation. Chronic elevation of cortisol can lead to metabolic issues, sexual dysfunction, and immune system suppression. Cognitive decline. Operators may experience memory loss, headaches, and emotional vulnerability. Unlike standard PTSD, which is a reaction to specific traumatic event, operator syndrome is the result of the lifestyle of special operations itself, where the human stress response system, the HPA axis, is pushed beyond the elevationary limits for extended periods. Okay, we're sitting at 40 minutes. Okay, we're going to stop there. Just goes on the treatment and approaches for the treatment. You don't really need to hear that part. So I just want to put this together and let you all know that Dad has been through this, okay? Mainly through military life, but also in civilian life, okay? So, at the bottom here, where it says, traumatic brain injury. Even without direct blasts, the consistent state of hyperarousal can degrade neural pathways, hormonal dysregulation, and cognitive decline. I have experienced all of that, okay? And I have been in blasts. My Humvee has been blown up. I've had bullets go past my fucking helmets. Fucking all kinds of crazy ass shit, okay? Shit that would scare the ever living shit out of you would probably make me go, huh, I wonder which direction he was shooting from. Oh, there he is. Bah! Okay? That's how I still think. When I go into Walmart, I know there's the two front doors, and I know where the back door is. And that's not paranoia. That's fucking years on end of fucking doing it. Okay? And now it's just natural that I do it without the paranoid side of things. Okay? Like I discussed in some of my videos, the combat zone, the Humvee blowing up, I did lose a shit ton of memories. I can't remember childhood worth of shit. I remember little bits of high school. I remember that bastard beating the shit out of me during high school to keep my mouth shut about what he's doing. Also, the cognitive decline, memory loss, headaches, and emotional vulnerability. Okay. All veterans, combat veterans, experience that part. It's hard to get things back in order. It's hard to be a civilian again. Okay. And shitheads like my sister that don't believe that I lost memory and don't believe that I've had PTSD, or my ex that don't believe in PTSD, this shit's fucking real. Okay. And for my sister being a medical professional, that's a HIPAA violation, denying somebody's injury. So fuck you. I've had many different things happen to me, psychologically and physically, that have fucked me up in life. And now that I'm 45, going on 46, I'm healing. I'm not, I can't even say that word, woke, but I've waken up to the things around me. I understand what has happened to me. And I think it's the last blow of the back of my head that really triggered something to wake me up. Okay? It had to get rid of some of those things from my past. And it really had to take those bad things away from me to really give me the ability to move forward, to do the healing, to have the understanding that I am here, I'm alive, and I now understand that behavior in military and overseas is only for war zone. Okay? And a lot of guys coming back are having trouble disassociating that behavior with civilian life. Okay? So I just want to put this out there that Dad has this type of PTSD issue. Okay? And I'm good, I'm better, and I'm not suffering from nothing. But I've had the TBI, traumatic brain injury, memory loss, and headaches, and all that shit. Okay? So again, I'm sorry for this one being longer, but this is a personal one. And I want my kids to understand and know that this is Dad. Okay? If you're type of kid that you like to stay busy, you like doing big things in your life. Okay? Be safe about it. Enjoy being active and having that little bit of adrenaline junkie kind of personality, but don't let your gut self go into the dark side. Okay? You will turn out worse, like I'm talking about. Okay? And the last tidbit I'd like to put out there, I am no longer going to recommend my kids go in the military. If you want to do something profound, go to Law Enforcement Academy and sign up with Sheriff's Department or Police Department and work your way up to maybe federal level law enforcement if you like to. Okay? I want you to stay home and stay safe. And if you go into law enforcement, go to all the fucking training you can get your hands on. Come to Texas. In the winter, this winter, I'm going to law enforcement training. I'm going to be researching everything. So if you want to come to town, you want to go training with me, good on you. Okay? So anyway, I love you and I miss you. I hope you're doing good. I hope you watched it all the way through. Thank you for coming by. And thank you for everybody else that comes by and watches. Okay? I love you, kids. Talk to you soon.